Okay. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the proceedings. I am going to be talking about something that I think is interesting. I am not doing this because to mock, demean, or make fun of any individual. I am doing this because I think that J. Scott Garibay, the one and only J. Scott Garibay, is exploring and talking about something that I do think is interesting, though I do think that he is attributing things to a Dungeons and Dragons product that are fascinating concepts and are very interesting, though I think the concepts and ideas, many of which reside in him, and he is reading them into a Dungeons and Dragons product that I think we run the risk because people are going to. We say hello to Mark Toronto first in the live chat. We run the risk. I think J. Scott Garibay runs the risk of people going to the product, not seeing there what he sees, and there's going to be a disconnect. Again, we say hello to Tim Frey in the live chat. I don't have a lot of time, and again, I've spoken about J. Scott Garibay in the past, and there was some pushback regarding, because I know that other people who have spoken about J. Scott Garibay may have done so in a way that may have been at best patronizing and at worst insulting. I am not doing this. I think that certain things that J. Scott Garibay is going to say in what he is regarding what he calls infinitization, because here's what's happening. There's a new Dungeons and Dragons anthology of previously released classic adventures that has come out called Quests from the Infinite Staircase. And I'm going to look at this is I have a website come up called Dungeons and Dragons fan.com, Quest from the Infinite Staircase. I just have this as a brief thing that I can point to just give you a brief introduction to the product, to show that when we go into J. Scott Garibay has done several videos about this concept, his concept, and regarding how this infinite staircase, how he regards this infinite staircase as working and operating, and especially how this infinite staircase is going to work and operate as a portal for player characters to be able to go from the world of Dungeons and Dragons to quite literally come to our world and function in a very specific way in our realm. And I want to just explore these ideas and concepts of, because I've talked on this channel. The more important a concept is to a creator, it seems the more likely it's going to be. The more important a concept is to a YouTube creator, the lower it will be in import to the audience. I think so. I've talked about my concept of the SSP, TTT, the meta RPG, my grand time traveling. This is how we're going to solve. This is how we're going to break out of the Matrix, people. This is important. I understand exactly where J. Scott Garibay is coming from, because but this is this concept of working on the esoteric fringe of TTRPGs and what they can be, which I think is the most interesting aspect about this stuff. People want to talk about Shadow Dark, yet another version of basically BX D&D sweeping the Emmy Awards. I think that goes to show you the nadir of where we are as TTRPG culture. Like, do you get it, folks? Like, but it all's on the design is so great, and the fighter is all on one page on 2-page spread, so you don't have to flip. This is what passes for an advancement, a bunch of amongst a group of people that by definition should be weeded out and more closely filtered for intellectuals and smarty pants, right? It's a travesty. It's a travesty. It's a joke. It's a joke. Anyway, here's the Infinite Staircase as I'm going to say it is, and then we're going to get into J. Scott Garaby's version of the Infinite Staircase, and we're going to talk about why I think it's fascinating and interesting. We're going to go through his videos. He's got about I made a playlist. You can see it, and he has a playlist. I put my playlist together to put the videos actually in chronological order so we could go through them. He has a tendency to hold on to ideas and kind of go like for like a little bit of I'm very similar, to kind of hold on to things and kind of work them for like an arc. And so he's been doing this infinitization thing for about 9 days, 10 days. So like we don't know how long it's going to go on for, but we'll see. But it is an interesting concept, but we'll get to it. But here, let's start off with what the Infinite Staircase, as I'm going to contend, it's vanilla formation in the actual D&D product. Then we'll get to how it works. Here's where I think the disconnect actually is. J. Scott Garibay is going to present it as if, to my ears, as if you were to go listen to J. Scott Garibay from the get-go, I think you might walk in and say, if you were not familiar with J. Scott Garibay and how divergent his takes on things can be from the product, the rules as written, putting it generously, of the products that he's talking about, you might come in and say, oh my God, the new D&D Quest from the Infinite Staircase has at its core a mechanic that involves Dungeons and Dragons characters or the Dungeons and Dragons rule set applying to the modern day schema and the modern day world. No, it does not. It does not. So let's go. Quest from the Infinite Staircase, D&D Anthology Deep Dive. This is from the authors of DungeonsandDragonsFan.com. They disclose that as an Amazon associate, I earned from qualifying purchases. Okay, this is in July 8th, 2024. Okay, a new anthology has arrived in the form of Quest from the Infinite Staircase. I'm just, paraphrasing. This is just taking this as an example article blurb that'll just give us a summation of what the product is to a normative stance, from a normative perspective. A new anthology has arrived in the form of Quest from the Infinite Staircase, announced in December 2023 at the PAX Unplugged 50 Years of D&D Adventures panel. The book is similar to Tales from the Yawning Portal in that it features 6 updated versions of classic D&D adventures from the past editions. Again, nostalgia loop. Here we go. It's a nostalgia anthology. We recently got our hands on a copy, and here we go. What is in the book? Quest from the Infinite Staircase. What is the Infinite Staircase? What is Tales from the Infinite Staircase? Here's what it is. It's a couple of adventures that previously exist. The Lost City. I have a great version of The Lost City. A lot of people have it. That's originally from 1982. Here we go on the nostalgia loops. I have a great version of it from Goodman Games. That's a 5e conversion plus the older edition reprinted plus interviews with all the old school people. Written from Tom Moldvay. This is from 1982. Then it's also got When a Star Falls from 1984, right on that 40-year nostalgia loop from 4 to 5th level players. It's also got Beyond the Crystal Cave from 1983. So this is all adventures from 1982, 83, 84. Could you get more on the nostalgia loop? But then again, here we are, folks. How many times have they reissued these adventures? A lot of times, probably. Pharaoh from 1982. From the most popular from the Desert of Desolation trilogy, The Lost Caverns of blah, 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 originally published in 1976 as Module S4, written by the one and only Gary Gygax. We also have Expedition to the Barrier Peaks that also received a huge, you want to kill somebody with this book, hardcover edition by the Champions Goodman Games. We got another version of that here from these guys. And what is this Infinite Staircase? The Infinite Staircase is a little bit like Roger Zelazny's, right, Amber world, where behind the scenes, this is a methodology for player characters to be able to get to this world and this world and this world. It's just like the the tavern and the yawning portal to whatever. It's a kind of MacGuffin central hub world, or you had that world in this one from what was it? The one where it was all the the conservative bros got all upset because it was all inclusive stories, right? Where it was like they had that central world where it was, the big city in the middle where it was all like, Arabian Nights, and then you go off at these little multicultural dimensional worlds. It's just like that. And Tales from the Infinite Escape, there was a Infinite Staircase. There was a book written by Monty Cook for second edition back in the day. In 1998, Wizards of the Coast released a product for AD&D second edition with a similar name titled Tales from the Infinite Staircase. It's just basically this little imaginary interdimension where people could go from this plane to that plane, but it's all D&D planes. And so you can get from, the Sword Coast to, wherever, right? There's nothing in it that says, you could go to here to, Miami Beach, Florida, necessarily, though it is what it is. I guess you can go anywhere you want to. But then here's the question that we're going to get into. What is the connection between what you know and what your player character knows? And that's going to be important when we get into design. So then we get into the review, but that's not important because where we're going to go now into is we say hello to Foxy's friends. Hello. We say hello to Foxy's friends. We have Mark Toronto with our gold medal for class participation. We have Tim Frey with that silver. And then we have Foxy's friends with the shameful bronze. Bad dog. I'm kidding. You're a very good dog. Inside joke. Inside dog. I will go inside later. Listen, without further ado, I bring you, and if this seems like a muddle of a confusion of a whatever, wait till we get to, here's the setup. There's an anthology of adventures that's been put out by D&D. There's the central staircase that's also posited as a kind of how you get from place to place. And J. Scott Garibay is going to tell you what he thinks about this Infinite Staircase. And I think it's interesting, this concept of being able to go from dimension to dimension. Yes, he's going to take it in a whole new direction. I want to talk about his concept of going in all these different directions, what the implications are. I'm not saying he's wrong, because these are pretend games. These are imaginary games. But I want to pause at certain places and say, what are the implications of what he's saying? I don't know what the implications of what he's saying are as far as he's right or he's wrong. I'm saying this is like metaphysics, right? This is like the philosophy of gaming is what it is, I guess. And we're just going to talk about it. But again, the purpose of this video is not to aggrieve J. Scott Garibay or to say, like, look at what he's saying. Like, what a schmoo. Like, who would say this? It's to say, look, these things are interesting, what he's saying. But, there are definitely points where I'm going to have to be honest and say, the thing that he's saying doesn't follow logically from the thing that he said before, though he's saying it in a way that seems that he believes that they are. And in that way, maybe I'll be of service to him so that he'll be able to go back and say, okay, well, let me explain what I meant, what I was saying in more detail, maybe. And then also there might be points where I'll be able to just point out, like, look, this doesn't really operate because the way we commonly think of, role playing, your player, you might know where this door is in our reality, but your player wouldn't, the character wouldn't, well, maybe you'll understand, maybe you just won't give a shit. Like, like some of my videos, the RPG people don't even click on because they're like, what? But anyway, and some of you guys are just like, well, I just watch it because this CW champion's an okay guy, and sometimes he makes sense and sometimes he doesn't, maybe he'll lambast the cat lovers. I don't know. Or maybe he'll throw himself under the bus again by exposing his nefarious foot fetish. How could you call me nefarious for having a foot fetish? We're just like everybody else. We put our shoes off one at a time. And we take your shoes off both at the same time with reckless abandon. Can I get me in trouble with the terms of service? I have no idea. I'll have to review those things. I'll get him just as wrong as Jason Garibay gets wrong the infinite staircase. Well, without further ado, why do I keep on saying that? Here we go. I'm going to do share screen. That'll make sense. Am I making sense? Not making sense. Anyway, share screen. The first video up is a huge change has come to Dungeons and Dragons, in my humble opinion. None of it is what. Let's see if this makes sense. It's just a 5-minute and 25-second video.
Garibay, and today we're going to talk about a huge.
Let's get right from.
Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about a huge change, in my humble opinion, to Dungeons and Dragons. So,
no change has happened. I mean, I cannot stress this enough. No change has happened. This is a reissue of a couple of adventures. The Infinite Staircase has been featured before. And there's, there is no real major, there are no major rule additions regarding the staircase other than there's there's additional monsters that guard the staircase. Oh, fair use, fair use, fair use. Thank you, Mark Tirana. Fair use, fair use, fair use. The purpose of this video is not to harass, demean, or to, make fun of anybody. It's an editorial work. It's transformative in its nature. We're just discussing the free marketplace of ideas. Ideas and concepts. I'm building off of what he is saying and discussing it. And I think it's worthy of discussion. I really do. I think it's interesting. I think what he's saying is interesting. I just want to help.
The change is infinisation. Infinisation. That is a combination of the word infinite, the combination of the word infinite, and conversation.
But I see, like if a huge change has come to D&D, I don't know how Scott Garrett, like this is what I would say to Scott, like, how can you have the term for it? Like it would have to, I think, maybe he's coming up with a name for something that he's seen introduced into D&D. I guess that could be fair. Maybe I'm learning something about myself.
And I believe that the first day that Dungeons & Dragons Canon Hardback Quests from the Infinite Staircase was released, we got the largest change in Dungeons & Dragons ever. Bigger than its creation on February 7th, 1974 by Gary Gygax.
That's a tall order, right? That's a big, like, you know what I mean? Like the bigger the claim, the bigger you're going to have to, the kind of the proof that you're going to have to provide for it. So it is what it is.
Like, wait a second. That's a huge statement. It is.
Yeah.
Let's walk there together. Okay. So basically, let me explain the flow of this. So here's how it happened. Okay. Dungeons and Dragons, Hasbro releases D&D Canon Hardback, Quest from the Infinite Staircase.
Step 1.
In Chapter 1, Quest from the Infinite Staircase says, the Infinite Staircase connects every world, every plane of existence to the Dungeons and Dragons realms.
It really says that, okay, so what it says is that the Infinite Staircase, because I've read enough of these small reviews to know that what it really says is that it connects every plane in the multiverse. Now, technically, you can read that as either saying it connects every plane in the Dungeons and Dragons multiverse, or you could, I guess, read it as saying that it connects every world in the possible multiverses, which could include our universe as well. But it's like in both the DC comic world universe, there's a universe like that is supposed to be like ours, and in the Marvel universe, there's like a universe like 1835 whatever that's like supposed to be like our world, right, as well. But neither of those demarcations are literally, our world, because there's no Superman here, right? There's no literal Captain America. So even if Dungeons and Dragons could connect, because it's like the World of Darkness role-playing game technically takes place or can take place in a modern setting. It could take place on Earth, but it doesn't mean that it's literally taking place on Earth, because it's a game, right? So it's like there's a disconnect here.
Okay. So what does that mean? All right. So this, I'm going to give a freight warning here. There's a lot of freight here. If you like Dungeons and Dragons, as let's cut a goblin in half and then drink some beer and eat some pretzels, do not go a step further, because this is going to be upsetting for you. All right.
Well, it's not gonna be the same because I'm not necessarily that guy. Like I could play like Dungeons and Dragons with like let's not leave here. Let's play Dungeons and Dragons and all we do is fish. You know what I mean? Or like, what are we gonna play in this game of Dungeons and Dragons? We're gonna play old men getting older. You know what I mean? We don't need to roll for that, but here we are. They're tales of giants somewhere in this world, but for younger men.
Okay, so if you think Dungeons and Dragons is a game and it's for fun, do not proceed forward with what I'm about to say.
So Sean is still on board.
People who are ready to be intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually challenged. Right? It's
Check.
Just this ain't the shower under the pool. All right,
Moxies,
I'm giving my freight warning there. All right, let's
ready?
go. All right, so now I will say what I'm going to say is going to seem shocking, right? And it is shocking.
Hold on to your panties, girls.
But I'm not saying this alone. Earlier this year, we had a very similar conversation as an American, a very similar conversation in American culture.
Okay.
With Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds did a film called If, Imaginary Friends, and the entire subject of that film was imaginary friends for adults and how adults need imaginary friends.
Okay.
I'm not saying adults need imaginary friends. I'm saying Dungeons and Dragons, I'm saying Dragon Masters, Dungeons and Dragons players need infinite advisors. Okay, so let me explain advisors.
Okay. Well, I'm going to pause right there. So I'm just going to say, I don't know to what degree one needs to be familiar with Ryan Reynolds' Imaginary Friends movie. If Mark Toronto, I don't know if you're saying that you're not familiar with the movie. If you're not ready, we're going full steam ahead. So if you need to, it's gonna hurt my numbers. I'll literally be, if you bail, I'll literally be losing a quarter of my audience. Not trying to make you feel guilty, but do all adults need imaginary friends? I don't know. Also, we're going to get to, because here's the thing. As we go, look, he's got a lot of videos about this, and I might very well follow him down the line and watch all of them. Not tonight, but getting to this concept, when we go down the line, depending on how far we go down, this concept of bringing things through from the other side. We can look at these things from a psychological perspective. You can look at these things from a metaphysical perspective, or you can look at these things from a supernatural perspective. Look, If you are, it's been my experience. I don't know if there are spirits in the material world or if it's just people's imagination. I don't. I'm not going to sit here and say I have all the answers. I have my prejudices and I have my leanings. Okay. Here's what, skeptics that pick up Ouija boards have a tendency to throw them in the garbage the next day and say this is a whole bunch of crap. People who have a predilection or a tendency to either want to believe or have um, a tendency to fall into believing, may want to heed the warnings about picking up Ouija boards, because those, people have stories about Ouija boards like, oh, this is junk and crap, and I can't believe people fall for this. And then some people have stories about, oh man, they played with the Ouija board and their lives were never the same again. Make of that what you will. We're going to get to a place where J. Scott Garibay definitely seems to be having an agenda towards wanting to bring things from one realm into another. And I have no position on whether or not the technology that he's talking about will work, can work, or what it will do for him or other people. But I am saying we can have a discussion about, is it wise? And if it does work, what would it do and what would happen?
So an infinisation is when a Dragon Master, a Dungeons & Dragons player, has a conversation in their IRL world.
Okay, now this is where it's important, because this is where it's important. Follow the bouncing ball, because I think this is one of the parts where we're going to get a real solid understanding of how this operation and how it would work. And this is where I want to closely hone in on why I think there's, problem with the mechanics.
If their Dungeons & Dragons character who is in the IRL world because of Dungeons & Dragons canon hardback, quests from the Infinite Staircase.
So they're because of Quest for the Infinite Staircase, the Dungeons & Dragons character is going to be able to come into IRL world. That's what J. Scott Garibay thesis is. That the massive changes now, because of the Quest of the Infinite Staircase and the publication thereof, Dungeons & Dragons player characters are going to be able to come into the real world. How is that going to happen?
How would that happen? Well, basically, you would start a campaign as a Dragon Master. You have, there's 4 other Dragon Masters.
Dragon Masters are the players. The Dungeon Master is still the Dungeon Master. Okay, and there's 4 Dragon Masters. This is J. Scott Garabay's conception of how it works. It's proprietary language.
Table, and there's the Dungeon Master. You say the Dungeon Master. Okay, we're in the Forgotten Realms. I'm in Phandalin. My player character's in Phandalin.
Now you got to pay attention to that, because we just because this is my point. One of my points, but this is a central point. I think if you're a real TTRPG person, you're going to pick up on this. It's the changing of person. We are in the Forgotten Realms. Okay, so you're in the persona, you're role playing as your player character. Okay.
I want my player character to find.
And now you're referring to your player character. There's a break of an immersion, and that's a problem. There's some players who have a thing about the degree to which people commit to role playing, and it's not about acting per se. You don't need to put on an accent, but there are people that get irate, and some people think it's taken too far, and they don't like people when people say things like my player character does. They want people to stay in the first person. I do this, right? You're not supposed to be above your player character, separated, doing things like, you're watching your characters like a miniature on an isomorphic view, because that's not role playing. You're not doing role playing then, right? That would be, this is the theory. I'm not saying that this is the way to do it. I'm saying some people say, have the attitude of, to be role playing, you're supposed to be in, playing the role. Do you know what I mean? We are in the Forgotten Realms. We go to this location. We go to that location. I ask the village elder, do you have any supplies for us? So, because, and this is important because who is where and who has the knowledge of the following?
The door from the infinite staircase to that door that is sitting in this game room where,
right? So the infinite staircase material published by D&D says that the infinite staircase operates in such a way that any player character can get to, theoretically, through the infinite staircase, any place they want to get to on a certain roll. But in order to want to get there, the player character has to know where they want to go. I don't know if J. Scott Garibay is aware of the fact that he just made a critical jump, because he just said, my character wants to go to that door there. How the fuck does the character know about that door IRL in your game room? You know about that door in your world. How the fuck does Bleethu the Mighty, Dwarven Warrior 3rd level, know about your door in your game room in, Oshkosh, Wisconsin or whatever? You can't want to get to any place that you've never heard of. That's not contained within the materials. So I'm just saying, it seems like J. Scott wants to get this thing going, but he's missing a piece.
we're all sitting. Dungeon Master says, yep, he's able to find it. He comes through the door.
Genocide.
He's standing there now.
No,
and
J. Scott Garibay just made a rant. You just made a total assumption. Again, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm not doing this video to make you say you're wrong. I'm just trying to, by hearing me, it's like the Socratic method. By hearing me talk about this in this way, Scott has the opportunity to then review and say, oh, you're right. It's an assumption to say that the Dungeon Master is going to say, oh, you know what? You're right. He can go wherever he wants to go. You said he wants to go there. Therefore, now the Dungeon Master could be, in my estimation, a dummy and say, oh, you're right. Or the Dungeon Master could say, well, actually, no, stop. He can't do that because he doesn't know what that door is. How does he know that? Or he could be not dummy. He could just be a nice guy and say, oh, you want to go there? Okay, sure. Right? But you can't just assume that it's going to go that way. But I don't know.
My human fighter
do whatever you want.
From Phandalin, who was in Phandalin, is now in this room in the IRL, correct? Yes, that's correct.
No, it's not correct. Not automatically. And besides, he wouldn't be there because you can't, you know what I mean? That's not how it works. You know what I mean? But okay, but I'm not telling you you're wrong, but you know what I mean? It kind of sounds like you're like, I won't work that way. Like I said, how's this guy get? And besides, FYI, in case you're curious, what are you going to do when the guy doesn't show up? And also, how are you going to know? This is the other thing that's scary. Dude, he's then going to go on to say that when the player character comes through, he's going to automatically behave in this way or that way or the other thing. And no offense, I'm not the craziest woo-woo guy in the world. Like I say, I don't know exactly how things work. But if you set up this operation and assume it's going to work this way, let me tell you, you might be setting up a situation. Some people say, I'm not saying this, but some people would say you're setting up an operation where like a little sprite or a spooky or a spirit or a little gremlin or whatever could be like, oh, you're calling the player characters from through an imaginary infinite staircase, and your dungeon master says that's copacetic. Cool, not a problem. I'm jumping in. Oh, no problem. You're looking for an infinite buddy. You're looking for an infinite ally. You're basically making a contract that says I'm going to be your infinite ally, meaning I'm going to be here in your life forever until you get like an exorcist or something or whatever to get rid of me. Good luck with that. Because I'm not in any book or whatever, and you named me you made up some sort of malarkey reason why I'm coming through here, so it's all confusing, whatever. And now here I am, fucking around your game room. Good luck. I'm not saying I don't think it's gonna happen that way, but whatever. You could, maybe. I have no idea.
Okay. At that point, the human fighter from Phandalin, Forgotten Realms, never goes back. He simply.
But he could go back because the infinite staircase says that if he got through here on the infinite staircase, then the infinite staircase entryway, you just turned. If you read what it says about the infinite staircase, Scott, the infinite staircase door he just came through is now a portal to the infinite staircase. He can most certainly go back. He can go right back through that doorway back to Phandalin. He can. You don't rewrite the words. You can't well, I guess we want to do this thing. I shot you. No, I got a shield. Well, okay, whatever. But the infinite staircase, read the words it says. He came through the infinite staircase. He can go back through the infinite staircase. How would he not go back to the infinite staircase? How would you not be able to go back to the infinite staircase?
He stays. He stays in this world. And when you finish the game, he leaves with you. Right?
How does that work? Where is it? You can write your own game. You want to write a new game where it happens this way? Just write a new book, but then the change hasn't come to Dungeons and Dragons. You've read something that may have sparked a new idea in you for like I said, like house rules or a new game or a new system that could be like glommed onto this, but you got to write it yourself because it doesn't currently exist. I surmise, maybe I'm wrong. It doesn't currently exist in the rules as written in regards to the brief lore written about this thing, the infinite staircase. Because as written, the lore about the infinite staircase specifically negates what you've just said about the infinite staircase. Oh, and by the way, this is all imaginary stuff that doesn't exist.
That is now your infinite advisor. You can have, you as the Dragon Master can have conversations with your character.
By the way, your character, by definition, is a series of stats written on a piece of paper and or a computer that is portrayed in an imaginary series of situations or environments by you. To the degree that they have any life or agency, it's the agency in life that you've invested in them yourself. So if they somehow come through, you'd be talking to, I guess, yourself or an aspect of yourself. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you can, but it might not be the greatest part of you. I don't know.
Your character remains with you. Not an imaginary friend, but an infinite advisor. And you.
It kind of sounds like an imaginary friend. I don't know how you would be. I'll say this, and again, not trying to pick a fight. So I think you have to do more work in explaining how this is distinguished from an imaginary friend. And I'm not trying to be patronizing, but if you're going to say that this is not an imaginary friend, then I think you'd have to go through extra steps to explain why it's not an imaginary friend. And if you're going to tell us that it's going to give sage counsel, I think you have to explain to us why, by default, it would give sage counsel.
You begin having infinisation, infinite conversations with your infinite advisor.
Now, again, this is like when he talked about the AI art and what it would mean, how the AI art would allow communication through the first person that came into contact with the hardback copy or whatever. Technically, this should have already happened. You could have done a solo playthrough where, J. Scott Garibay already called forward this infinite ally. So he's talking about this stuff like theoretically, but if you already kind of have this, not either you're talking about something theoretically that could happen in the future, and therefore you shouldn't be saying that with confidence that this stuff will happen. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but you may be incorrect. You should acknowledge the fact that you could be incorrect, that it's theoretical that this stuff will happen this way. I can't believe I'm thinking about this deeply. Or you could, in the alternative, just run the experiment yourself and say, this is how it did happen. Why would
Actually,
I do this?
I'm sorry, your infinite ally. Your infinite. I think that's better. Your infinite ally, right?
I think
And
it's
your
a
ally
douchebag.
because you created this character, and this character means the best for you and cares for you, right? Like,
But why would they? There's like, if I've learned anything from Brain Scan, that movie, and then other stupid movies, is that like it doesn't always have your best interest at heart. You know what I mean? Like sometimes the things you call it like Leprechaun, right? You wish for the pot of gold. Hey, if you see John said working, you wish for the pot of gold, and then all of a sudden, the pot of gold's in your stomach. It's like that's not what you wished for, right? It's like it's like totally like ironic. You know what I mean? You're going into bars with like a little, the world's smallest orange shaped head and like a little piano playing guy. You know what I'm saying? It's terrible. It's bad news, right? Oh, and also I want to say this, like J. Scott Garibay makes a big deal about being like a Christian. Like, this is like witchcraft. You're talking about bringing things over from the other side. It's bad news, dude.
because you're literally their creator.
You're playing God, dude. And meanwhile, yeah, but it's okay because this is gonna work. But okay,
That's an infinisation with an infinite ally. It's a huge change.
It's really not a huge change, and first of all, none of that happened, but it's okay.
Change. It's literally a manifestation of if you were serious. In my humble opinion, every single word you just heard is my.
So is he fucking around? But you say if you were serious, but then he's got more videos about it. So I don't know.
Humble opinion. The important part's when I hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic.
If you're serious,
please consider
we'll go on. We'll go on the
segment.
Did I fall for it? See,
hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about Infinisation.
I made that video, and I said the last time I covered Scott Garibay, I said, is he trolling? And people were like, no, he's not trolling. He's totally serious. He's got like a mental health condition, blah, blah, blah. But then he said that thing, if you were serious. I missed that. You see, that's how I totally missed that. I've been watching these videos for the last 9 fucking days. I totally missed that if you were serious. Right? I totally missed that. Did you catch that? I totally missed that until just now. What a brilliant son of a bitch. He's not fucking. Is he serious? Well, look, here's what I'll say. If anyone ever says to me, you're a douchebag for covering J. Scott Garibay, I'll be like, well, number one, that thing they just said that if you're serious, I'll be like, absolutely, I totally am. Right? And then I'll be like, B, no, listen, he's got it coming because he's doing a full, that's him, that's Andy Kaufman. There's no fucking way. The next video is 8 minutes long. Hold on, wait. I'm
Okay.
going in. I'm just
Now,
letting it play.
this video, you don't need to watch any other video to watch this one, but this is part of a playlist. So if you want a broader context,
This one has
start at the
508
beginning of the
views. A
playlist.
huge
But you're
change has
welcome
come
to
to
stay right
Dungeons
here
Dragons, in my humble opinion,
and learn about Infinisation. So Infinisation is the largest change to happen in Dungeons & Dragons ever, in my humble opinion. It's even bigger than the creation of Dungeons & Dragons in February 7th, 1974. And I think this is really important because I love Gary Gygax so much. He was only human, but one of the reasons why Gary Gygax is the third most important American in history, George Washington, Harriet Tubman, Gary Gygax, that's the list.
That's the list. Okay. You know what I mean? You gotta love this guy. He knows exactly what he's doing.
I think the reason why I am
the reason this video has 800 views,
why I am devoted to understanding Gary Gygax is he is the only human I have ever seen in my life that speaks directly and speaks more importantly in death than he did in life. He actually, every day, Gary Gygax is stating incredibly important, powerful things. Powerful things.
I have no idea.
And I think that's really important to understand. And
then I'd be interested in seeing how long
his legacy is. There are a lot of people who are inspired by his legacy.
This video has 508 views.
They are
if he ends up stopping when if he just stops when the views pop.
I feel like they use Gary as a fuel to surpass Gary, and I do think Gary has been surpassed a few times now. Amanda Heyman, I think, has done work that surpassed Gary Gygax's original work.
Okay,
and that's okay. That's exactly the way it should be, right? Like there are many politicians who are inspired by George Washington and have surpassed his acts, right? So I think it's really important.
Great general.
So let's talk about Infinisation. What is Infinisation? Infinisation is a combination of a word, infinite and conversation. And it is a conversation between you, a Dragon Master, a Dungeons & Dragons player, and your player character who has traveled to the IRL Earth from the Forgotten Realms or any of the Dungeons & Dragons realms and has chosen to stay specifically to the tool that allowed this in the Dungeons & Dragons canon hardback Quest from the Infinite Staircase.
I've pulled 3 cards in the
Infinite Staircase is defined in Chapter 1 of Quest from the Infinite Staircase. And it says, the Infinite Staircase connects the Dungeons & Dragons worlds to every world, every plane of existence. That includes ours, right?
Not necessarily.
So the way you get an infinite...
I don't have the hard copy. I don't have the book in front of me. I don't have it. So I'm not going to... But I've read enough of the supplementary materials and reviews of it to basically say with absolute confidence that the wording of the book, I think it's fairly safe to say that the import, the implicit statement is that it connects every world in the D&D multiverse, right? It's not a modern setting. It doesn't I don't think it contemplates people going to, and even when you do contemplate going to a modern setting, I don't think there's anything in there that suggests that the people at Wizards of the Coast think, by the way, this product totally allows you to go to the real world, and your player character is going to go to the real world and service your infinite ally. This is just taking place possibly in J. Scott Garaby's imagination, or is J. Scott Garibay just telling you that he thinks this is how it works because it serves as a vehicle for him to allow him to make a title like A Huge Change Has Come to Dungeons & Dragons, in my humble opinion, to net him approximately 508 views in 8 days, a process, over time that has netted him 3,000, subscribers over the years and has made him, a cause de, celebre amongst certain aspects of the TTRPG community. I got to tell you, I did not see that. I'm going to let it go. But here, I'm just gonna let this play. I gotta go, folks. I'm just gonna let this guy. I'm gonna let him say one more complete thing. I'm gonna keep on watching this guy.
Ally to have an infinite conversation is you say to the dungeon master, my character's in Phandalin in the Forgotten Realms. He's going to find the infinite staircase. Then the infinite staircase actually leads people to the door they wish to find. It takes 4d12 hours. Okay. So once you get to the infinite staircase, you can find where you want to go. That's done. It's not even difficult, right?
It's not necessarily not difficult. There are enemies on the infinite staircase, and there are guardians on the infinite staircase. So that is incorrect.
Yeah, it's incredible, right? So you find the infinite staircase, and then you go through the infinite, and then the player character goes through the infinite staircase and goes through that door on the infinite staircase to the door in the gaming room that you're in when you request this from the dungeon master, right? So your infinite ally arrives. Your player character arrives in the room.
Again, fair use. The purpose of this video is to analyze and discuss the work of Scott.
Well, actually, it doesn't start right then.
Regards to the infinite staircase.
Actually, that player character say hello to the dungeon master, can say hello to every other dragon master, can say hello to you, right? And that's an interesting conversation, blah, 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 whatever, right? But when you go home, your infinite ally goes with you, right? And that infinite ally remains with you and talks with you and guides you and comforts you and challenges you and laughs with you and cries with you and is your infinite ally. Now you're like, wait a second, Scott, are you sure this character would do that? Well, you're their creator, right? Like, you want to talk about imprinting, right? Like, if you just think about imprinting, right? Well, think about imprinting 100 times stronger, right? This person is literally created by you, and now has been brought from this world where they were probably going to die a brutal death, burned to death by a adult red dragon, or cut to pieces by
your children always grateful
by the teeth of a purple worm.
Have you heard about sons and fathers?
Frozen in ice by an evil warlock? All those evil warlock is redundant, but you know where I'm going, right?
Well, evil warlock is not redundant.
The character comes through, right? And now, when on the ride home, that's the first real infinisation, right?
What?
Hey.
But like I said,
Blue Rent. What was it like in the Forgotten Realms? What kind of mead did you like?
Now again, I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment. So the problem is, one of the problems is this. Is like I said, is that you are the player character. There is no player character distinct from you. The player character is your avatar. When you're playing a TTRPG, when you're playing a role-playing game, you are Blue Ren. You can think of the characteristics they would have independent of you and live vicariously through a person and a persona that would do not as you would do. But how would you have a conversation with yourself? And why would you have a conversation with yourself? But again, I think it behooves me, if I'm going to think about discussing J. Scott Garibay's Infinisation, to leave aside the notion that he may be trolling and just take him and these concepts as given. What do you think? Leave a comment in the comment section below. Have I wasted my time? Have I wasted your time? Are there any ideas here worth exploring? Do you get it? Is there anything here to get? Or are the notions and ideas grasped in a moment, but still found wanting? Yes, we understand completely. It's, the crazy man runs up to you and grabs you by the shoulder and says, Freemasons rule the government. Don't you understand? And you say, yes, I understand completely. You're an insane person who just grabbed me by the shoulders and screamed nonsense in my face. I understand completely what's going on. I wish to leave. Drew three cards from the Egyptian Tarot. I think they give us some insight into something. I do. Check this out. No joke. All from the suit of wands. First card up, the Six of Wands. A card associated often with victory and triumph. Though we should remember that all victories and triumphs are but one moment in time, one circle turn. And like all moments, this too shall pass, and this too may be fleeting. Hey, now you're going to see these in mirror order, but well, not if I do one of these. Here we go. Party on, Wayne. Party on, Garth. Next card is the Nine of Wands. $69. It's a very good year for wands. Bah! Give a shout out to J. Scott Garibay. If I find out you're trolling, I'll do nothing about it. Nine of Wands. Victories can be hard won, but we still stand tall and resilient, confident that we have what it takes to last through and through. And the last card, we have the Knight of Wands, Heir of Fire. A lot of wands down the line. Here we go. We have the six. Oh, we have the six. We have the nine. Get it going in order and time. Ended up with the Knight of Wands. Come on, buddy. Ended up with the Knight of Wands. On a journey, traveling forward, that creative energy going forth across the land. But be careful that you don't blow yourself out along the way. But in summation, what I find and what I see is that I honor Scott's creativity and for pushing me forward to be creative myself, to get out and back onto the TTRPG channel. But it reminds me too, creative endeavors drive us forward. But remember, on the quest of creativity, to pay attention and make sure that you know where you're going and that it makes sense and can make sense to the others around you. Because we can leave our senses and become obsessed on the quest and lose sight from the forest and the trees and go off on a maddening quest and call up spirits from beyond that can cause mucky muck in our IRL game room. Go have fun at work, Jonaside. I got to hit the road myself. Until next time, tell me in the comment section below, is this a rabbit hole worth following or Have we said too much already? I won't know until you help me decide. Let me know. And until then, I love you, I love you, I love you. If nobody told you they loved you today, somebody just did. That somebody is J. Scott Garibay and the Lord Jesus Christ, who will be coming one of these days, possibly through the infinite staircase in Jerusalem. Or so I hear. But I don't know. Wizards of the Coast is sketchy on whether or not they're going to reprint the book, the good book. Player's Handbook. I'm kidding. It's a terrible book. I'm kidding. It's mediocre. I'm kidding. I'm waiting for the Apocrypha, according to Mike Merles. Listen, take care. Adios till then.